Thank you for joining me. I'm glad you're here. My name is Jerrel. I develop games for a living. Today I will discuss Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. I will approach this topic from an informational and educational perspective, so I hope you enjoy today's episode. You can tell I'm a big Pokemon fan on account of my favorite Pokemon. I've got a little pin of him. This is Karibomon, and he's been my favorite since the late 70s. So I've seen people discuss this game in YouTube videos and in the comment section, and these people don't know anything about game development, and they're spreading around misinformation, which is a little interesting to see. What is mostly wrong that people get about Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is that people say, oh, this game, they copy and pasted the code from the original game and just pasted it into the new game, and that's why the game is so buggy. Incorrect. I will explain why that is not possible at all. It's just impossible to do that. And I will explain why the game itself is so broken. Recently, Nintendo has shipped a patch for the Switch 2 firmware, which fixes some problems that the game had running on Switch 2. The game would crash quite frequently. So I'm going to explain as a user of Unity, the game engine. This game was made in Unity. So let's go ahead and just have the game fill up more of the screen so we have something interesting to look at here. All right, I am controlling the game in real time here, so we just can take a look at the game while we discuss the topic. So Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, these games are developed in Unity. They have no code from the original game. They really can't, because the original games would have been created in a totally different environment. You cannot copy and paste the code from that. Unity, generally, we develop in C#. That is the best language. You can use JavaScript, but that's really a terrible option when you can use C# instead. So you cannot copy stuff. C# was not used for developing on the Game Boy Advanced. It was a totally different development environment. So for people saying that they copy and pasted code, you can't. It's a totally different language. That's like trying to say that you copy and pasted English and now you can speak Latin or a totally different language. It's not how it works. Unity is a very volatile game engine. I've been using Unity for more than a decade now, and one of its biggest problems is that it has poor memory management. It has a very difficult time clearing up memory. And when you reset your game in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, it is likely trying to reference game objects or data that no longer exist. And that can result in null reference exceptions, where it's trying to say, hey, I want to reference this object, but then if that object is not there, then the game basically will just become erratic and unpredictable, and it'll just start doing things that really shouldn't be possible at all. In terms of memory leakage, it could be trying to reference things that are not cleared properly. And once we run out of available RAM due to your memory leakage, that's when you get the game crash. Now, I had this issue with some of my games on the 3DS. I used Unity. And even Unity, the developers of Unity, did not realize how broken Unity was. Unity itself is a great engine for what it can do. The workflow of Unity is fantastic, but it is very broken. Core features are just plain broken. And Unity on the 3DS was the most broken thing that you have ever seen in your entire life. Am I going to drown and die here? Okay. And so with Unity 3DS, the biggest problem was that it was constantly leaking memory. And on other platforms where you have much more RAM available, it's much less noticeable. It's not that big of a deal. But on the 3DS, I learned exactly how broken Unity is. So, for example, many basic functions like a for each loop, which is used for repeating lines of code. It's used for repeating logic while parsing through entries in an array or list, which is used for storing multiple entries of data. Using for each causes memory leaks. One solution to this is to replace your for each loops with for loops, and you can iterate through that. That is a solution that you may not even know yet you can implement and that you should implement. And that takes time to learn. changing anything on the canvas, the UI element. Say, for example, the text here is we have marching text. As the text fills out there, that is marching text. Every time a new letter appears, everything that is on that canvas layer needs to be flagged as dirty, and then it is reprocessed by the game engine. That actually causes memory leakage in Unity. It causes huge performance issues. I don't know why they haven't fixed it yet. It's been more than a decade. Creating and destroying objects causes memory leaks in many cases. For example, one of the issues that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl had early on was that when we opened the menu, when we pressed the button to open the game menu, it was not controlling logic to open the menu, it was creating a new menu. And that is how people were able to access many glitches, because they were able to open the menu multiple times. And that is absolutely bizarre to me. And I'm not here to insult or belittle anyone, especially the developers who worked on this, but that is not competent development. Neither from a software development or a game development perspective. Creating the object to open the game menu is not competent. That exhibits a complete and utter misunderstanding of how to develop software correctly, especially how to develop a game correctly when you have so many resources to manage in terms of loading things into memory. So that is problematic. That to me told me that the developers that worked on this specific game did not have much experience for larger projects. Maybe they've worked on smaller things, but this is quite a large game. Even though the graphical style is simple, they did not have the experience necessary to handle a game like this. Now, what's really problematic with Unity is that it's fine for small projects, but Unity has very poor scalability. As your project gets bigger and more complex, Unity becomes less stable and less reliable. It does the most bizarre things that you have ever heard of. For example, when I was creating the final games for the Wii U and 3DS, I had projects that were quite large, and sometimes Unity would just crash. And when it crashed, it would just randomly change some of the data in my objects. It would reset the data on some of my scriptable objects, and so it would suddenly reference things that it were not supposed to, and it would cause crashes. And this is problematic when I was fighting a deadline and running to get to the finish line. Unity would crash and I would lose about a week's worth of progress, because now I need to go back and find out where Unity randomly changed and broke a lot of the stuff that I had done a lot of the work. So it's a frustrating game engine to work with because it's not stable, and it gets significantly worse the bigger your project is. So in order to use Unity correctly, it's still worth using Unity because the workflow is just so good, and using C# is excellent. You need specialized experience and knowledge in Unity, especially for the platform on which you are shipping your game. You can only gain that knowledge and experience through doing, through paying attention, and actively learning. You have to specialize. So game development is problem solving, and to solve problems, you need to understand the problem on a deeper level. You need to know what is causing that problem, and you need to know the tools and options that are available to you in order to solve that problem. I'm trying to make content here on the channel to where I can help other developers, especially if they are using Unity, because I've seen other developers launching games that have some problems with their games, and if they have Unity, I especially want to reach out and offer some advice, because I specialize in using Unity, and I specialize in working with how broken Unity is. I love making video games. It's one of the things that I'm absolutely most passionate about. I want to write stories, I want to create and share adventures with all of you, and the path forward, unfortunately, means that using Unity is my best options. I've weighed up the other game engines, I've looked at what's available, I've seen and understood what is available, and unfortunately, Unity, I say that, unfortunately, Unity is the best option for me because of the workflow. I just have to put up with how broken Unity is, and my brain chemistry over the past 10 years has totally changed because of Unity, because it has such frustrating problems, but my brain has rewired itself to naturally work with how broken Unity is. Every game engine has problems, and it is your job as a developer to solve those problems and to work your way around it. Yes, we should not have to employ tricks to make a game engine do what it's supposed to. There are many basic things, again, in Unity that are utterly broken, but the developers that worked on this game just did not have the specialization to understand how broken Unity is. They did not have the specialized experience and knowledge to work around how broken Unity is. So these developers have some experience, but when it comes to creating a bigger project in Unity, they did not have the experience for that. So you can brute force through these problems. When you have stronger hardware, when you have more RAM available, you can just brute force it. You don't have to be that good, which is why many modern developers are just significantly worse than the developers of the previous generation. And that has to do with just brute forcing and never learning to do better, never increasing your level of understanding. So I really hope that the developers that work on this will continue to improve and continue to learn. Game Freak did not develop this game. Ilka developed this. I would like to see these developers continue to learn how to work around how broken Unity is, but basically what it looks like is happening is they did not release all of the memory correctly when players are able to reset the game. I was about to reset it just then, just to test it, but there is a part of my brain that won't let me reset without saving first, so you know, there is that. So really it comes down to not managing your references, not managing memory correctly, and unfortunately that's Unity's one of its absolute worst aspects. Is it's very bad at managing memory, and if you are not extremely careful, if you do not clear it correctly, you are going to have crashes. This was a big problem with Silver Falls 3 Down Stars. There was a reset option the exact same way. What happens is you have to clear everything from memory. Well, you have to ask Unity to clear everything from memory. And much like a teenager, sometimes Unity will go, I don't feel like it. I'm watching Evangelion right now. And so you don't get your memory cleared. Some of it gets cleared. Sometimes you'll leave, you'll go back, you ask the game to reset, you go back to the title screen, and it's looking for things that aren't there. It's trying to reference data that's not there, and it can really freak out. So there's a lot of manual work that goes into it, but based on the glitches that I've seen in this, these developers were the wrong developers for this game. These developers did not have the specialized experience required in order to make a game of this scale and scope. If they had more experienced developers when it comes to using Unity, I'm not calling them inexperienced, I'm saying they lacked the specialized knowledge to work around how janky and broken Unity is. That's what I'm saying. Then the game would not have turned out this way. And the Switch 2 runs this through a kind of emulation. It's not running it natively, which I think is excellent. It's great because games can run better, but it means that any issues or flaws, they can be amplified because it is not running the game natively. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I hope this was useful to some of you. If you're interested in game development, you absolutely should go for it. And I mean, I know this is a Yu-Gi-Oh monster. Yeah, I'm just messing with you. Take care of yourselves. Be well. I'll see you around.